You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. Coming up, we'll see what's making the headlines with Polly Mackenzie, the chief executive of the Demos think tank and chief political correspondent at the Daily Telegraph, Christopher Hope. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. The Daily Mail leads with business bosses, MPs and health experts demanding Boris Johnson reform COVID rules on self-isolation before they cripple the economy. Downing Street is refusing to be drawn on whether social distancing rules had been broken following Michael Gove's announcement his marriage is over, reports the Daily Telegraph. The Eye goes with hopes of quarantine-free foreign trips to Europe for those who've had both doses of a coronavirus vaccine. That's also on the front of the Express, which says Germany's leader, Angela Merkel, backed down on her plans to make British tourists entering the EU self-isolate after a showdown with Boris Johnson. The Times claims that fully vaccinated people who've been in contact with someone with COVID will be able to carry on life as normal in a few weeks without the need to take daily tests. Labour's Batley Spend by-election win is on the front of The Guardian, with the party's leader, Sir Keir Starmer, saying Kim Leadbeater won it for her campaign based on unity and decency. The Yorkshire Post has a picture of Kim Leadbeater giving her mother, Jean, a hug after winning the Batley Spend by-election. The Financial Times reports that London's share of the European market has steadily risen in recent months, making it Europe's largest share trading centre. England's Euro 2020 clash with Ukraine makes the front of the Mirror, with Captain Harry Kane promising to pull out all the stops to win the match, saying we will give it everything. Paul Gascoigne says England can win the Euros if fans throw all their support behind manager Gareth Southgate. That's in The Sun. And England's clash with Ukraine is also on the front of The Star. And we're joined tonight by Polly Mackenzie, the chief executive of the Demos think tank and chief political correspondent at the Daily Telegraph, Christopher Hope. Good evening to you both. Let's start with the Mail, first of all. Their headline there, "Don't let NHS app cripple Britain." And it's really a cry for reform of the self-isolation rules. Polly?
Yeah, so, I mean, we're now... huge numbers of our population are vaccinated. We're one of the top countries in the world in terms of vaccination, and that's had a huge impact on the hospitalisation rates. So even though case numbers are going up in a really worrying way, the numbers of people in hospital is actually still really low, and that's partly because we've done really, really well at vaccinating the most vulnerable first. Other countries have taken a more kind of open and broad brush approach. And if people are still expected to isolate every time they kind of glance close to somebody who tests positive for COVID, it perpetuates the disruption. It means we're not seeing the benefit of those vaccinations. You know, I defer to the epidemiologists on the maths of this. We have to find a way to benefit from that. And we have to focus on managing the hospitalisation rate and trying to target that. And we want people come forward for those last vaccinations, including potentially for booster vaccinations in the autumn that we might all need. We have to give people an incentive. And, you know, basically, I'm agreeing with the Daily Mail, which is
always the first for everything. But Christopher, as they're saying, up to 1 million people every day could be forced to isolate because of the test and trace rules. That's just simply isn't workable. Perfectly healthy people to be isolating like this.
Yeah, well, what we're seeing is newspapers pricing in the fact that the end of the pandemic, the lockdown, the social distancing is going to be on the 19th of July. So it's what happens next. And the problem here, which the Mail are correct to talk about, and we're seeing it in schools, and we'll come on to that shortly, is that the NHS app, if you're near somebody who may have been a ping, then you can be pinged yourself, and it can literally send home entire workforces. Certainly, most of us now work, if we're lucky enough to work in an office, work in an open plan office. Now, this NHS app can literally send so many people home as soon as we get back to work. So it could, what the point here is, this requirement to go home and isolate is going to cripple Britain if it's not changed. So it's as we leave this difficult period we had over the past 15 months, it's how we return back to normal is the point. And we'll see more of these stories over the next few days. Boris Johnson only today saying how we're going to get to stage 4, how we're going to get out of this these restrictions. And so we look forward to hearing what he's got to say. So this is the beginning, I would say, of a 2-week cycle of stories.
Can you see any alternative, or is it simply scrapping the system completely?
Well, the figures appear to show we have broken, thank goodness, the issue of people catching the disease and deaths. And so it looks like it can be dealt with and is being dealt with, as the most vulnerable of us have had their 2 jabs. I've had my 2 jabs. I'm not sure what about you guys, but I think, we have to learn to live with it. Polly mentioned flu. She's completely right. I mean, it looks like by the autumn we'll be having 1 jab in each arm and back to work.
Yes, and Polly, let's talk about those that have had both jabs. Incidentally, I have had both of mine as well, Christopher. I can join you in that. The idea that really the world really will open up to those who have been double vaccinated, that's really what the Times is talking about. It has been dangled in front of us, although not confirmed by the Prime Minister, that those that have had both jabs should be able to travel.
Yeah, I mean, the crucial thing to remember is it's not up to us. Can't just tell France or Germany or America that they're going to accept people if they've been vaccinated. We have to then do some careful diplomacy in order to persuade those countries the value of those vaccinations. And what we know is that, unfortunately, whilst the vaccines are very effective at reducing death, reducing sick disease, reducing hospitalizations and reducing transmission, they don't stop you completely from getting the disease, and they don't completely end transmission. So, it's right to carry on being cautious even about people who've had both vaccines. My second one is on Sunday, so I'm very envious of the both of you. But soon I will be in the hallowed category. And we have to give people that incentive to both get vaccinated and stay vaccinated, whilst not making it sound like it's a complete free-for-all. Masks, I hate masks. I despise them. They're really annoying. But it feels to me like if we keep masks in some circumstances, like that's the least invasive, the least disruptive thing. And we know that it does help to kind of transmission.
And Christopher, the added complication to the double jab scenario is those under the age of 18, how they factor into the picture. We don't know exactly how that will work. No. And also the vaccines that were produced in India, they might not be accepted if we want to travel in Europe. So being double jabbed isn't necessarily the complete route out.
It's not the complete route, but it certainly is going a long way down the journey, isn't it? The Times here is reporting almost an answer to what the Daily Mail is saying. It's saying that the government wants to free us up from having this 10-day requirement to self-isolate. Now, I see in this article in the Times the first clear blue water, possibly, with other governments in Scotland and Wales and the rest in this country, because I think the government's going to go down to common sense. It's where they started when they went into stage 1. They said, use your common sense if you want to hug somebody. And I think it looks like here that there's a meeting on Monday of the COVID Operations Committee, a very important one, chaired by Michael Gove normally. And they're likely to sign off a plan, which will mean that the fully vaccinated will be advised to take daily tests, but not required to do so when they're self-isolating. I think that's how it should be. I think we all know, sadly, we all know the dangers of this virus. We know how to deal with it. We are very informed people, and it's about time the government stepped back and helped us get on with our own lives. I think that's where Boris Johnson is. Certainly with Sajid Javid coming in as the new health secretary, we'll see more of this, I think, of people being urged to take back control of their lives, whether Polly likes it or not.
Let's go back to the point mentioned about schools and the management of COVID within schools. And in the Telegraph, the Archbishop of York is calling for an end to school bubbles, something which it seems the government is of a mind to do, but not moving particularly quickly towards that end, Polly.
Yeah, so just like, the workplace Chris is talking about, entire classes or sometimes entire year groups can be taken out by a single positive test. And that's then disruptive to the school, but crucially, those kids who are potentially losing days or weeks of education, there's rumours going around that kids are finding ways to fake positive tests so that they can all play hooky. And even if that's only true in a few cases, it does seem, again, potentially a serious problem, especially if we're going to take it through the autumn. You know, there is a debate about whether we should be vaccinating children. The idea that we shouldn't somehow put children at risk of vaccinations in order to protect other people when they're not at risk from the disease. But actually, it's a fundamental part of the flu vaccination as well. We give lots of kids flu vaccines in order to break and protect elderly people in the community. So, you know, there's all sorts of reasons why we give vaccinations. I think we should be incredibly aggressive about vaccinating children in order to reduce the pool of infections, reduce the chance of variants, and make sure that our kids can stay in school as much as possible.
But Christopher, it's quite an odd one, because although parents are very happy to be vaccinated themselves, they do have a question mark over whether they should actually allow their children to be vaccinated. It's very curious because they have allowed them to have other vaccinations in the past. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think this throws up all sorts of issues here, because parents who may not want to be vaccinated, do they have the right to stop their child being vaccinated? Will the state step in? I think we haven't even got there. This sounds like a very good think tank paper for Polly Mackenzie's Demos think tank. I've got to say, I'm intrigued by what Polly was saying there about fake test results being passed around schools. That sounds very interesting, a bit like fake IDs to get into a pub back in the old days. They're now faking vaccinations to even go to the pub in the first place and show their fake ID, probably. So it sounds quite grim I mean, we all know how hard it has been for children over the past few months. And I think, I think this campaign that we're leading, the Telegraph, this campaign for children, is well overdue. And one hopes that by September, Gavin Williamson will certainly be telling schools not to be sending entire year groups home if someone is pinged.
Yes, many will be hoping for that. Polly and Christopher, stay with us. We are going to take a break, but coming up, he won it, but on a very narrow margin. So what does Keir Starmer think of the Batley and Spence result? We'll discuss that after the break.
We should protect our heritage. Unfortunately, it will become part of Azerbaijan.
This monastery is under the protection for now, the next 5 years at least, of Russian peacekeepers. I'm Diana Magnay and I'm Sky's Russia correspondent, based here in Moscow. I witnessed the despair of the Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh who were digging up the soil of their dead relatives. It's Armenians who've abandoned these villages now. Quite what their strategy is, I'm not sure, but they have made some arrests already today.
They can't kill everyone, they can't shoot everyone, they can't arrest everybody.
We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world. I mean, this clearly says, I love Hitler. Are you saying that doesn't say Hitler? Russia insists that its military build-up in the Arctic is purely defensive.
My name is Fatma Zilzila, the founder of EcoStaff from Kuwait, where we face many environmental problems related to waste pollution, deforestation, and lack of information. We are collecting recyclables from houses, schools, and businesses in order to recycle them. In exchange of your recyclables, you get a treat.
Welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me now, still Polly and Christopher. Welcome back to you both. Let's start with the Yorkshire Post in this section, and the picture there, let's get that up, showing Kim Leadbeater hugging her mother, a victory hug they're describing it as, after quite a torrid campaign, hasn't it been, Polly?
Yeah, it has. And of course, Kim Leadbeater is the sister of Jo Cox, who was so viciously murdered during the last days of the Brexit campaign. And, you know, I mean, I salute her courage more than anything. You know, if my sister had been murdered doing her job, would I want to throw myself into doing that job, fighting to get elected to that job? But, you know, I mean, I honestly don't know how she had the courage to do that. I admire her enormously. And the campaign was very unpleasant. She was abused in the street. Some of her campaigners were attacked. It was a close-fought campaign. Galloway campaigning, as well as the Conservative, kind of obviously very close. You know, I think it was, as Keir Starmer said, we'll come on to it, but, you know, a victory for dignity, because, you know, some of that viciousness that was directed against her because of her sexuality or because of her views about sexuality was just not what we need in our politics today.
Yes, and in The Guardian, as Polly mentions, Christopher, Sir Keir Starmer hailing the Labour win as a victory for decency.
Which it really was, because she so clearly is a decent person and a decent MP now elected. And it was such a grim battle there, with the way the election was fought. I think the Conservatives missed a trick here. They lost out by 333 votes because the left vote was split, with George Galloway taking away 8,000 or so votes. Boris Johnson may be thinking tonight, if only he really had dealt firmly with Matt Hancock last Friday, instead of allowing him to stay on and say the matter was closed, and then dismiss it as a Westminster bubble issue when it wasn't. I think that may have damaged the attempt to get Labour to come across.
Indeed. Christopher and Polly.